My name is Natalie Tomanchek, and this is our presentation over Reflection 2. And we chose to do week 3, so the 3 videos in that module. So, in our presentation, we are going to highlight the main ideas and arguments from our 3 videos that we watched, and then connect those points to our 4 additional sources that we selected. So, I will be going over the crash course video, How Are Cities Organized? How we define a city, there is not one definition for how a city is defined. Different places define a city by many things. Some examples that define a city include population size, density, and maybe whether or not people are working in agriculture jobs versus non-agriculture jobs. And then concepts like megacities are used to describe very large urban areas. Reasons that cities grow. So cities grow because of shifts in the economy, technology, and migration of people from rural to urban areas. An example of this is China and their development of ports after opening policies. Government investments in transport can also help accelerate growth. And then the role of transportation and infrastructure in city growth, or not city growth, city organization. Transportation can very heavily influence the layout of cities. So, for example, expansion outward is made possible by good roads or public transportation systems. And sometimes older areas of cities are more compact because of limitations historically in transportation. And then some challenges. So, with the growth of cities and just about anything comes challenges. Some of these challenges that come specifically with city growth include income inequality, segregation, and land use conflicts. And in order to help avoid or solve these things, it is important that there is some sort of planning. Important things to plan include land use, how to manage growth, and environmental constraints.
Hi, my name is Victoria Nell. I will be summarizing the documentary The City from 1939. While the film is influential in modern and urban planning histories, some critics say it misses the complexities of real cities. The city is based off the idea that you can fix cities, which more often than not, you'd run into political, economic, and social constraints. The documentary is often studied today as a kind of blueprint for urban planning modernists, for inspirations and limitations. The two key points of this documentary were urban renewal and rebuilding and planned communities and model towns. The city argues that cities need to be transformed because they're so unsanitary, overcrowded, and have efficient conditions to be lived in. From all the smoke from the machinery, the waste that was poisoned in the water, and the TB and that all the diseases that everyone was exposed to constantly because of the tight quarters. And it sees that the age of rebuilding is necessary and urging that the old urban ways are becoming too dysfunctional. Planned communities and model towns. As an example of the planned communities, it shows us multiple examples of cookie cutter houses that provide us the American type feel. It also pushes the idea that urban planning can create healthier, more efficient, and socially beneficial living environments where parents get to spend more time with their children and the children get to go to school and not have to work every day. Even though this is an old way of thinking, even now in the modern world, poverty can still determine whether a child gets the proper education or not. Thank you.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Jonathan Trevino, and this is my group's second reflection video. And I chose to research The Man with the Movie Camera, which was developed in 1929. And to kind of give you a brief overall summary of what this movie is about, the movie documents a day in the life of someone living in Moscow, Kiev, and Odessa using visual means alone. Now, I should preface this by saying that this person doesn't live in all 3 cities all the time, but rather it's someone who traveled to these 3 cities in order to kind of see what it would be like to live in each one of them. What's also interesting to note is there's no script, no dialogue, and intertitles, as the story is entirely portrayed through images, editing, and camera techniques, which allows for a very unique audience experience. It's been highly praised for its bold experimentation, but was also criticized for being too radical for the general audience at the time. Despite that, Has been regarded as one of the greatest examples of a precursor to documentaries. Now, some central themes of the film are it's documented to spotlight urban industry, transportation, sports, labor, and leisure in the rapidly evolving Soviet Union. It's also worth mentioning that the audience gets three different perspectives to view. As I previously mentioned, we get to see we get to see the atmosphere of Moscow, Kiev, and Odessa, which are all different Soviet cities, albeit they do share similar values, at least back then. Also, the audience learns about Kino Eye, which stands for camera eye, which reveals truths and realities that humans aren't able to perceive normally. And additionally, the film emphasizes the rhythms of the cities and people working together in a cohesive society aligned with Soviet ideals of the late 1920s. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rylan Weatherford, and I'm doing the outside sources. And the first one is what is a city? What is urbanization from Population Reference Bureau? The article talks about how different countries define what a city and what urbanization is. It says that urban depends on population size, density, and economics. It relates to the video, how cities are organized, because both talk about how there is no single definition of a city, and that many places use population, density, jobs, and more. The article reinforces how migration and economic shifts create growth. My outside source number 2 is Global City Densities, explaining urban scaling theory. The article is a research article analyzing data from many cities and countries to see how population density relates to city size. It relates to the video, how cities are organized, because density is one of the possible ways to define a city, and it shows that density has other factors. It helps to show how transportation and the layout of cities might vary, and that cities with slower density scaling might use more land and need different transportation systems. It gives evidence for why planning is important and how cities could develop. Third source is the lingering legacy of America's first cookie cutter suburb. It is an article that talks about how the history of one of America's first large scale suburbs. It states how the mass produced homes became a statement of suburban expansion. The article relates to the video, The City, because of how the two both talk about planned communities as solutions to urban problems. They both convey the different complexities of urban living. The fourth source is the good, the bad, and the urban planning politics. It is an article that talks about the politics and challenges behind urban planning, as well as how historical planning policies still influence current urban development. The article connects to the video The City because it shows how urban planning is often created by political agendas and economics, like in the video. It critiques that urban issues can be solved through idealized planning models, like with the video and how urban transformation overlooks some issues. Thank you.